Okay, so you're listening to You Can Fix That in Post with Elise, Simon, and Dave. And this show is my topic week, and I've decided to do US remakes of foreign films, as well as TV shows. So, let us begin. The classic is horror.
It is. It's one that's been used a lot to translate, particularly Japanese films, but there's also been a lot of Scandi films recently.
Yeah.
And TV shows, actually. A lot of Scandi TV shows.
A lot of Scandi.
Yep.
And do you think any of them do any well? Like, do you think...
I think they do, yes.
I think they do. Okay. There are examples where it works. There are examples where it doesn't work. The horror part of it, you go, okay, well, you got The Grudge, you've got The Ring, you got things like Funny Games, and you've got Let the Right One In, and what's that other thing? You know, that other thing.
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That's not necessarily a horror film, but
no.
It's more of a thriller.
Yeah. What's your opinion on The Grudge?
You know my opinion on The Grudge. I hadn't seen it when it came out. Like, it was sort of, was it like early 2000s that there was this really big push of Japanese horror films? It was one that I hadn't seen. So I went back and rewatched The Ring, and I watched The Grudge, and man, there is a massive difference there. The Ring is scary. Like, it's actually edgy as seat scary. I found The Grudge really boring. I didn't feel any tension in it. I didn't feel any, like, with The Ring, you're always, like, expecting something. It's like, it's got the jump scares. The Grudge, I didn't feel had any jump scares in it.
Now, I'm going to say a few things. Words, generally. Okay, so the environment in which you saw The Grudge, you told me that you were looking at Instagram. Now,
yes, because I was bored.
Yep, now, here's my thing. The boredom is where tension and suspense are supposed to be building. The payoff in The Grudge isn't great. It's a cat person, or it's a chick who can, burp. Now, so this
is what took me out of it, though. It was a child meowing. That is not scary.
Yeah, but also the build-up to that is taken away if you're on Instagram. Yeah. So, for me, I don't think the payoff's very good. I don't like the payoff.
Me for my Instagram habits.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think culturally it translates, but I think the moments that were good from that film were the tension, not the payoff.
The only part of it that I did feel like there was a bit of tension was, well, this is going to be spoiler alerts here. When they open up the cupboard, I don't remember if it was Sarah Michelle Gellar or if it was someone else. Opens up the cupboard.
And the boys in it?
And, an arm falls down or something.
Yeah.
It might have been Bill Pullman. I can't remember. So, yeah, this is it. It was boring and it didn't engage me. But, yeah. And then the part in the clinic where the dead chick comes back.
Yeah.
And she turns around and, the bottom of her jaw is missing.
Yeah.
That was a good little jump scare. But that was the only tension-filled moments.
Okay.
In the whole film, I felt like... And Sarah Michelle Gellar's character was just so... bleh.
Sometimes there are people that exist. Not everyone who has to be in film has to be, look at me, I'm sparkling. They can just be... bleh.
Sparkling?
Yeah.
She just was just a wet dish rag of a character.
There are wet dish rag people. I see them all the time at work.
I know, but I expect more from horror films these days. I expect characters with a bit of fucking agency, and she just had nothing.
I got a question for you. Is the reason you dislike her character because she's quite clearly...
she's the anti-Buffy in that film. Yeah, exactly. And I think that definitely played a part in it.
Yeah.
She's helpless. I wanted her to roundhouse kick that thing in the face.
Yeah, it's like...
And
why did she bring her steaks with her?
Annoyed me.
Yeah. Okay. But...
That's a whole other argument, though. Can you separate a character, an actor, from a character that they've played for a long time. Like, this is why people don't want to get into franchises anymore, because, you know, Robert Downey Jr. will always be Tony Stark.
So here's my thing. I think actors who can't act don't want to do franchises because they can't do any more than themselves.
Look how long it took James Van Der Beek to shake off bloody Dawson Leary. Like, it can ruin your career, can't it?
Well, potentially, but I mean, he did some good films. He also, like, you know, that him playing himself in the apartment.
It's taken him 20 years to get Dawson off his back, though.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think of Robert Downey Jr. as just Tony Stark.
There is a whole generation, though, that will.
Yeah, but
because
that's
he's been doing
they're
it
lazy.
for 10 years. No, I'm talking like kids.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is that they can think of him as Iron Man, but people who grew up with him shouldn't think of him just as Iron Man. And
He'll always be that mugshot to me.
Yeah, whoa. But I liked him in Hearts and Souls. I liked him in... There's Sherlock, there's Chaplin. There is all his stuff in the 80s where he plays a smug prick.
Yeah. As opposed to now where he's playing
a smug prick with money.
With money, yeah.
Wow, we kind of veered veered off there on a tangent. But I guess what we're saying is, I don't think culturally it translates. I think there is very much a cultural...
And that's where The Ring and The Grudge
are different.
There's such a difference there, because The Grudge is so steeped in sort of Japanese culture.
And mythology.
Yeah. Whereas The Ring, you can just lift a ghost from anything and plop it anywhere, really.
And likewise, it's through a medium that us Westerners understand, which is someone gives you a videotape. Well, I guess if you're in the 90s, you can understand it.
Not so much now.
Someone gives you a DVD. Someone gives you a dongle and says, watch this.
Yeah.
Someone watches it on Stan and Netflix, and you're just like, wow, I watched that thing. I'm going to die in 7 days.
Streaming services.
Yeah. So I guess... For me, that film already has the tension there, because they're saying you're going to die in 7 days, and every 5 seconds someone just keeps on dying. So it's like, the main character, they're going to die in 7 days.
Yeah.
So tension's there. And it is a good cast. I mean, it's Naomi Watts, isn't it?
She's awesome in that.
The father is Brian Cox, and who's the guy? Is the guy a hunky?
He's Australian.
Is it the guy from Bootman and Coyote Ugly?
No, I may have to look it up. He's been sort of workman acting. He's in Hawaii Five-0 now.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's sort of been workman acting in America for the last
I have issues with Hawaii
years.
Five-0.
Martin Henderson.
Yeah. Yes. I'll be sure to look him up.
Yes. No, he does a decent job in that. Like,
yeah, I remember him being serviceable.
He's chum for the water, essentially, but
yeah,
he does a good job. You kind of like him and hate him at the same time.
Also, the stakes are kind of raised when the kid watches the film.
Yes,
like
nobody wants the child to die in a horror film.
Yeah, the child or animals.
Yes.
Now, in The Grudge, it's like, no, the child is actually the bad thing.
Like the demon.
And in some ways, you're kind of just like, oh.
Which I didn't understand. Like, I just, probably because I was on Instagram and not paying attention, I just didn't understand the whole premise of that. Like, there was 2 ghosts, but they're not ghosts, and I don't really get it.
Okay, so beyond the Japanese, you got things like funny games. Now, the original is pretty brutal. And
the remake's pretty brutal.
Yeah, but I guess it's serviceable in that if you haven't seen the original, the remake is enjoyable for Western audiences.
Yeah.
But I guess I kind of just think that there's this level of, we can't be bothered reading subtitles. Like, it doesn't enhance, it doesn't go beyond what the original did, in my opinion.
No. And that's probably also where things like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it felt a little bit superfluous to do an English version, because everyone in the world read the book. Like, it was a massive, massive bestseller for ages. It was top of the New York Times bestsellers for over a year, I think. It was massive. Everyone had read the book and everyone knew it quite intimately. the only reason, in my opinion, it was made with a Western version in English was to put American name actors in the roles. Was to put Daniel Craig in it, put Rooney Mara in it, Christopher Plummer, as opposed to Swedish actors that American audiences weren't familiar with.
Now,
It wasn't a, you can't change the story, you can't do much with the characters because everybody knows them intimately having read the books. So what was the point?
so you're basically saying that Western audiences can't read? It's like they can read the
American
book.
audiences.
They can read the book, but they can't read subtitles because they
It's
used
just
to
to make
read
it
really
more-
slowly, and a subtitle is something that goes really quick, and you're like, oh, it's
There was
halfway.
nothing more to bring to it, though, is what I'm saying. Like, it's still set in Sweden.
Yeah,
It's still the same characters.
yeah.
There's nothing more to bring to it other than a familiar face.
Or is the familiar face doing a better job than what the Swedish? Like,
Yeah, debatable. Yeah,
well, that's what I'm. What do you think?
I don't think that there was anything more that Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara brought to it that the
Yeah.
Swedish actors.
So serviceable, but not necessarily greater than.
No, yeah,
Okay.
no different really.
I got a question for you. Death at a funeral.
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings about that.
Now, okay, so we're talking about what, the space of less than a year, right?
Yeah,
Between the British one, or, is done, and then another one's already in the works, and it's the exact same premise.
the same. Yeah,
It's just a different target audience, obviously. It's like,
well, the actors in the American one were largely black.
yes. So I guess what I'm saying is it that they thought that target audience wouldn't see the original, so we'll remake it pretty much identically to the other one so that target audience comes and sees this?
Without opening a massive can of worms here, there is a very large black audience in America that can be catered to. And films like Black Panther have proved that if you target a film for a black audience, they will go out and see it. They will show up at the box office for it.
Yeah. But Black Panther was its own thing. It's not like there was a British version called White Panther and then they went, oh, black people
Hey.
won't watch that. We should make a black...
There's a niche audience here.
Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, like, is it Tyler Perry?
Yeah.
That has made a lot of money out of...
Medea 50.
Yeah, out of his films, aiming them at a black audience.
Yeah.
There's obviously a target market there.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, did he make the Death at a Funeral, the American version?
I don't know.
Maybe not. Oh, should probably look at that. Yeah, I mean, if it's a proven niche market, why not? Why
See,
not?
Unless there is some kind of data that suggests that, black people don't watch white films, or then I kind of go, well, it just feels like they're actually doing a disservice. It's like, these are your films, these are our films. You don't watch
Never
our...
the two should meet.
Yeah, because I think Black Panther goes, no. Like, it's like, for me, I love the Nutty Professor, and I love the Clumps. And for me, you could go, okay, well, is that just for that target audience, or is it for anyone?
No, well, everything's for everyone, essentially. But if you can represent on screen, we're getting into a whole new area, representing certain groups on screen is a good thing.
Yes.
It's about, you can't be what you can't see. If you're going to put a scientist on screen, doesn't always have to be, a white scientist. It can be any kind of scientist.
I guess what I'm saying is, if someone said to me, now we've got this $20 million or $10 million thing, and we can either take the script from Death at a Funeral and make a replica, or we can just make our own film that people will, its own original thing that could do greater than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose it was a matter of, it was a script that was for sale, and someone bought it and then went, okay, I'm going to make this film, and this is what I want to do with it.
Yeah. I think it was purely made for profitable reasons.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that's what should motivate films all the time. Especially of that particular
it's
genre.
A business, though.
Yeah.
Some people have got to make money.
It sits more comfortably when it's a franchise of superheroes fighting each other. But when it's like, oh, it's this...
Or just taking something...
Yeah. It'd be like...
making it for the sake of making it.
It'd be like...
There's no real passion behind it.
If Australia took This Is Where I Leave You and we did it for, I don't know, the Aussie... This Is Where I Leave You is about Shiva... And it's about, people mourning who happen to be of the Jewish faith. And if you went, oh, well, people in Australia can't watch that film because they don't get it. So we'll take that premise and we'll just call it, The Wake. And we'll have an Aussie barbecue, but it'll be the identical thing. It's like, you're not giving enough credit to your audience that they can understand universal themes.
Yes.
Anyway, that was really another tangent. We're going to have a short break.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some examples of it not necessarily working the greatest, but I mean, there are films out there like Insomnia where you're like, it's pretty damn good. You got Christopher Nolan, you got everyone in it basically winning an Oscar for something, or multiple Oscars.
Yeah.
And... so it's an example of it working.
It introduced the world to Christopher Nolan as well.
It
more
did?
or less. It was one of his earlier films.
Yeah, but I was trying to work out the timeline of that and Memento. Is it
I'm
after?
not sure.
For some reason I feel
We
like...
can check that.
Yeah. We can check that in post.
Yeah.
You can check on my post. My big fleshy post. Okay. Now... Jesus, Dave. It's like... You haven't been in the entire episode, and now it's just like...
It's just him giggling in the background.
Now, I require you to say things... Talk about drunken history.
Right.
It's not drunken history, it's just drunk history.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Drunk History is a UK series, which has now been brought over to America.
Is that the right way around?
The other way around.
Fuck.
Well,
we've definitely leaned into that.
We had this whole conversation.
The moral of the story...
The most common way that things have been remade is in an American format.
Yeah.
Whereas this one started in the American format and was picked up
Yes.
by the UK.
That's right. I actually saw it first, the UK version. I think it came out in 2016.
But see, that's actually interesting that you saw it that way, because a lot of people would actually be exposed to these shows based off the US version first, and then going, what? It was made off something else?
Yeah.
And then they'd see the original and go, oh, it's a lot better. Or, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'd imagine there'd be a lot of people who saw the US Office, enjoyed the hell out of that, and then go, oh.
And then realised that there was a series, 5 years before that? 10 years?
Probably 5 years.
Yeah.
And they'd watch that and go, oh, so this is the original source material.
Yeah.
And they'd probably really dislike the first couple of seasons of the US Office because of that. Because they'd go, oh, this is exactly the same as the British stuff, only it doesn't really translate. But, they talk about the idea of US stuff finding its feet after the source material is exhausted. So
yeah, which is a big case in the American Office.
Yeah, and...
The first season is more or less episode for
verbatim.
Episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fortunate thing in some ways is once they exhaust that source material, they are forced to be creative. And because they're always copying British stuff, British source material doesn't last very long. They're like 6 episodes per season, 2 seasons, and then we get a special and that's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of doing a direct comparison, they got about 13 episodes worth of source material, and then they're like, well, we typically do 22 episodes a season, and we milk the crap out of that, so they have to be creative really early.
Yeah.
So for me, Queer as Folk, the US version is a hell of a lot better. Well, it's not a hell of a lot better. It's just a different animal, and you get much more time with the characters, and you get invested in it because it's not a flash in the pan. It's not, oh, you've got your 6 episodes, and you got a second season that's a couple episodes, and that's it. They go, no, you're going to get crap loads of episodes over a long period of time. You're going to get emotionally invested, and we can do character development. And it does get significantly better after they stop trying to copy the British version.
Yep.
But, it doesn't work always. Like, pretty much a lot of the time, you look at things like the IT crowd, and here's the thing. People would talk about the IT crowd US version and the pilot episode being terrible, and it is not great, but I don't actually think the pilot episode of the UK IT crowd is particularly good.
Not really. I mean, it's gone on to become like a modern classic of British sitcoms, but it is like for character work, they're quite out there.
Yeah,
they're until you get more comfortable
invested
and invested in them, it's a lot to take.
Yeah. So the first pilot, like the pilot episode of the UK version, it's like, yeah, there's some laughs in it, but it's not particularly grand. It's when you get like the changing of the big boss to, was it Matt Berry?
Yeah.
And when you get introduced to like Noel Fielding, who's like the vampire, who's like, they're in this other kind of room.
In the closet, yeah.
Yeah. And when they go on these adventures where, like, they're going to a cinema thing and they all end up having different identities and stuff like that, like, that's where the humor lies. But the pilot episode doesn't have a huge amount of that. Now, when you compare that to the US version, okay, you've got Richard Ayoade. Is that...
We're still debating how to pronounce his
I
name.
think it's Ayoade.
Okay, we'll go with that. Richard Ayoade. He plays the same character because obviously to cash in on the success of the UK, we should get a direct kind of translation in that character over. And I'm sure he went, paycheck. I didn't actually mean to do his voice.
Was he trying to sound like him? Because you kind of did.
I kind of sounded like him, but I didn't mean to. And then they have Joe McHale playing the character from the Irish Friggity Flaggity Flu guy. What's his name? What's the guy's name?
Oh my god, put me on the spot.
Not Chris O'Dowd.
Chris O'Dowd, yeah.
There we go.
Well done, Dave.
Thank you.
See what things you can come up with when you talk. He plays a similar character. People would say, oh, you can't have the bulky, good-looking, handsome, muscle-brown guy from Community play that role. It's like, yeah, but when you look at that pilot, he didn't have anywhere near as many muscles. He doesn't look anywhere near as handsome, and he's
tones the charm right down.
Yeah, and he's playing a version of the pissed-off IT guy. He's not trying to be that kind of, what's the word, charismatic kind of role. So people would say, oh, you can't have him play that role. I'd say, well, watch the pilot again and see if he's doing that bad. The problem is that the rest of the casting sucks. The chick, Jen, crap. The big boss, crap. And it's also the fact that they're copying a pilot which wasn't the strongest out of the IT crowd anyway. Like, if the pilot episode of the US one was them going to that theater with, one of them ending up being a barman, one of them being disabled, and,
Disabled. Yeah.
I see why it didn't work, but, I mean, there are examples where it does work. Like the Australian Wilfred.
Yeah. That's gone on to be far more of a success in the US than it was here. Like, it did pretty well on the ABC.
But it was a bit obscure.
Having the draw card of a big name like Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
And a bigger audience.
I like his Wood too.
Your crushes on random celebrities aside.
They're not random, they're all guys.
It's become quite a phenomenon over there.
Yeah. And I think it's because the source material is not necessarily chocked full with Australiana to the same extent as, say, like a Kath and Kim.
Yeah, that was never going to work. Never, ever, ever going to work. Kath and Kim is such an Australian-centric comedy, there's no way it could translate. It couldn't translate to the UK. It couldn't translate to America. It just wouldn't work. And without those two actresses who created those characters,
and they tried. I mean, when you look at the
work.
people who were there, it's Selma Blair and
Who played
Molly Shannon.
Kim? Oh.
I mean, Molly Shannon is friggin' amazing.
She's hilarious, but what makes it funny is that they're like a parody of certain Australian culture. You know, just it would never have worked.
And a similar thing that might not necessarily work over here is like you look at My Name Is Earl, and that is pure white trash American humor.
Yeah.
Now,
it wouldn't work anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it was going to work, you'd take that kind of semi-premise, but you wouldn't call it My Name Is Earl Australia. You'd just go, let's do a show about Australian rednecks.
Yeah.
Or bogans. Or let's do, about a show about the English Geordies or whatever it is.
Mm.
But when you actually label it, My Name Is Earl UK or My Name Is Earl Australia, you got this giant expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. Which isn't going to translate.
You're setting yourself up to fail. And Kath and Kim failed. Wilfred did well. The US Office, I mean, nominated for a million things.
Oh, man. All of the actors have gone on to bigger and better things. And it's gone down as one of the great sitcoms.
Yeah. And it's
created a whole subgenre as well. Like with the sort of talking to the camera.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
faux documentary kind of.
It did and it didn't. I mean, because
it led into Parks and Rec.
Yeah, but that's not them creating that. That's the original. Like, I mean, the original.
Well, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go, the US Office talked to the camera first. I go, no, they did that in the UK one as well.
Yeah.
But you're right. They did prop up. Like, you look at things like Arrested Development, Modern Family. It's just like, what? We just can't explain the characters through their actions and the script. We have to blatantly tell them what they're thinking to this, mock film crew, which doesn't actually exist in reality. Like, for me, it's like the UK version of The Office, they explained the fact that the BBC was doing a documentary on, like, a paper merchant or whatever it was.
Yeah.
In Modern Family, I don't know what the hell's going on. Like,
it's not like it's set up as a documentary or anything.
Yeah, and they're talking to a camera, so these people physically exist in their world, yet they never refer to them really.
No.
Like, if I had people in my house and they were interviewing me for stuff, I would imagine I would have some kind of interaction beyond me just talking about myself and my feelings. It'd be like, you've been living in my house for a couple of years now. Why are you here?
Why are you still here? 6 seasons in a movie.
Yeah. Okay, so we've kind of done a little bit of a brief kind of summary of this stuff, but I mean, in saying that, talk to us on Facebook. I mean, there's a lot more out there, like there is The Bridge and The Tunnel and things where it's not the US remaking stuff, it's the UK remaking stuff. So talk to us on Facebook, and if there is a need and if there's a desire, we'll do a part 2.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to find out where you can access the films and TV shows that we've been talking about.
Yeah. So you can grab The Birdcage on Stan. The Ring is available on Google Play and iTunes. The Death at a Funeral, the British version, is on Stan. Funny Games, the American version, is on Stan, and the Austrian version is on iTunes. The British version of The Office is on Netflix and Stan, and the American version is on Stan. And Queer as Folk, the US version, is on SBS On Demand.
Cool. What are you watching at the moment?
What am I watching? So I've spent the last week and a half looking after my partner at home. He's just had surgery, so we've spent a lot of time on Netflix. We burned through 2 seasons of Broadchurch very, very quickly. We got sucked into that show. Absolutely awesome show. It's a UK detective procedural, starring David Tennant, Olivia Colman, and Jodie Whittaker. About a 13-year-old boy who is murdered in a sort of seaside small town in the UK, sort of in the south of the UK, and a very grouchy detective comes in to solve the crime and becomes a part of this really tight-knit community throughout solving this murder. And it's brilliant, and it's heartbreaking, and it's awesome. I loved it.
I got a question for you. Is this the thing that will make you like David Tennant enough to watch Doctor Who?
It will make you put his really gross Harry Potter character out of your mind. That was the main reason why I really couldn't be invested in David Tennant, because of the character he played in Harry Potter. But you fall in love with him in this show.
So, specifically to you, will you be able to now go and watch Doctor Who?
No, I'm not a Doctor Who fan.
Even after loving Tennant in this?
Even after loving Tennant in this, and loving Jodie Whittaker in this, who is the new Doctor, the female Doctor. She will just rip your heart out in this show. She plays the mother of the boy that gets murdered.
Yeah.
And she's brilliant.
So David Tennant's on Facebook going, I don't know what I have to do to make Elise like me. Watch Doctor Who.
Oh, no, I just can't hack Doctor Who.
Okay, well, I'm watching Grimm, which is basically...
I like Grimm.
It's a little bit... I feel like it's a formula that's being done a lot. Like these kind of, like, you know, episodic adventures of people with supernatural abilities and this person who's like a fish out of water. It's somewhere along the lines of Reaper and Chuck, and it's good.
Yeah. The world building in that show, I think, is what makes it.
At the moment, that's what I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying, you know, takes on mythologies that I'm familiar with and how they become reality within this TV show. I do enjoy the dynamic between the lead and the other kind of blue bot kind of
Munro.
Yeah.
I love Munro.
I like those two.
Munro will make you love a cardigan like no one else.
In my head, I was like, I don't like the Kardashians, and then I realized, oh, you mean the cardigans that he wears?
Knitted cardigans.
Yeah.
In almost every episode.
Yeah.
And yet he's got this. He's basically a werewolf, I guess. He's like a wolf kind of guy, and he's just like this like snuggly big guy in a cardigan most of the time.
Yeah. Admittedly, that's not where my mind went to when I was thinking of him, but now it makes sense. Yeah.
I love the cardigans.
And Dave, you're busy with uni and such, but what are you watching? Are you watching anything?
Very slowly, I guess, watching Genius, which is a biopic about Albert Einstein.
And anyone famous in that, Dave?
Yeah, I think there's Jeffrey Rush plays adult Einstein.
Ooh.
Adult Einstein.
Yeah. And there's some other person that plays young Einstein.
Yeah. Young Einstein, now famous Australian film.
Right.
Young Einstein.
Oh, Jesus. Do I have to
Do I have a massive gap in my knowledge here?
Yeah, Yahoo Serious. I mean...
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes. I remember.
Yahoo Serious. Is he still alive? Is he still kicking around?
Last time I checked, it was basically that, and then Reckless Kelly, and then nothingness.
Yeah, he may have actually been deported for those films.
Wait, his name was Yahoo Serious.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, his name is Yahoo Serious. I'm being serious. You know. His name was Yahoo Serious? Yeah.
Born Greg Gomez Pied or something.
Okay.
Well, that was a tangent, wasn't it?
That was a tangent.
Now, on that note,
what do you
want to
recommend
wrap
about
us up?
Genius? Is it good?
Yeah, it's not bad. It's nothing special, I guess. But yeah, I've only
Wow,
watched...
let's go out and see that now.
Whoa, that is, yeah.
Jeffrey Rush is going to
5
send us
stars
hate
from
mail,
Dave.
isn't he? Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. What was that? I don't know that signal.
I think we can fix that in post
We
then, I
can
guess.
fix that in post. Yes.